Hello, and welcome to another episode of What's Going On with Shaun, a variety podcast grounded in marketing, but with an appetite for quality conversations about things that make life worth living. Time is precious, so thanks for tuning in today as we find out what's going on with
Steve Roessler.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Did we get that right, Steve?
You did. I'm impressed. Yeah. We only had to review it 3 times.
For the listening and then potentially viewing audience, little just known backstage secret. Steve was in the green room. I went in and I said, you know what? I've never asked you if the industry pronounces your name right. And so he told me Hulk Hogan is a
wrestler. Boom. Yeah, brother.
Love it. Well, you know what? On What's Going On with Shaun, we have a foundation of marketing tidbits and sales and all that, but I love to talk about things that make life worth living. And for some people, that's professional wrestling. So let's just start right where you told me to park it. Were you a wrestling fan as a kid?
Oh my gosh, yeah, I was. Okay. I got in the light there. Yeah, I mean, man, I watched WrestleMania 1.
Whoa.
I mean, you know, Survivor
I couldn't even tell you who was in WrestleMania 1. Who was in WrestleMania 1?
Oh my gosh. I couldn't tell you that. But, you know, during this whole COVID thing, you know, you would see on ESPN, they were playing all the reruns of that stuff back in the day. And I was all about that. I mean, when you just, I mean, that's just so funny. We're starting off with this because on ESPN, did you ever think you'd see the day where you got WWE or WWF on ESPN? I mean, holy cow. It's just crazy.
No, never, ever. Never, ever. I think it's fascinating, though. I talked to some of our, mutual friends in the industry. There are some really amazing marketing lessons that come from the sources that you wouldn't expect. Professional wrestling is one of them.
Absolutely. You even just think about I know it's, you go back in the day, I think the best thing that they did was admit that it was fake.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I just think, but when you go out there, it's entertainment, and then they just go out there now, and with the, you can see who's really a good, like The Rock, right, and even Hulk Hogan, and just the words that they use to get everybody going, and the Stone Cold Steve Austin back in the day, or Triple H. I mean, I think it's always amazing the way they talk is how they create their fan base. And The Rock's got these good one-liners, and you just create some of those good one-liners, in like sales, for example, like, me, like, my biggest thing is Live with Drive.
Yeah.
And that was a complete accident. The way that actually came out was, I just said, hey, you want to go live with Drive, like DriveCentric? And next thing you know, I said, dude, that was really good. Next thing you know, that was my saying, and that's how it was born.
What a great story!
That is years ago. But no, I mean, I sit there and I listen to the whatever The Rock, and you go into Ric Flair and you watch Ric Flair and all his sayings. I mean, it just cracks me up. And
brands within a brand, right?
Right.
And so, for those of you that are like, oh, these guys are going to talk about wrestling and hair metal and Cobra Kai and Karate Kid the whole time. Every once in a while I don't get a whole lot of criticism on the podcasts. It's usually do more of them. I'm like, okay, well, they don't pay. So, I got to make money too, people. But, some people are like, well, I want more product centric stuff. Just talk about the companies and talk about marketing, because I like to talk about everything. So let me just tie this together and what's going through my brain. All the brands within a brand thing is a really, I think, under discussed marketing strategy. I mean, how many times has DriveCentric had a conversation around the value of Steve Roessler's brand within the brand, right? Because the Seattle Seahawks are a brand within the NFL brand. When they had the Legion of Boom was a brand within, and then Russell Wilson is a personal brand within, all of which has a synergistic positive impact from a marketing strategy that will literally give you insights into, well, what should you be advertising? What channels should you be advertising in? And do those line up to your goals? And so, yes, we can talk about wrestling, but so much of it is relative. So it's kind of interesting because of pro wrestling.
I was going to say, like, just to tie onto that, from a marketing side, just kind of think about, just again, we're talking about wrestling, but when Hulk Hogan or a lot of people were leaving WWE and going to WCW, they were losing viewers, right? I mean, if you were a fan of Hulk Hogan or any of these guys that would migrate over, and now there's this other wrestling, and I don't watch wrestling anymore. I just don't think it's as fun as what it used to be. It's just too over the top for me. I just miss the old days. But it is a soap opera, and man, they can really capture you pretty quick. But I think from a marketing side, you're marketing every one of those wrestlers markets themselves, and that's how their dollar value goes up to the organization. Because
so true. So true. That's interesting that we get off on wrestling to start with, but that's what happens. Unfortunately, Steve, that's what it's like to be on my podcast.
Well, and you know what? I do have to point out, okay, just because I do love wrestling, right? Okay, back in the day, I think from our perspective, or for me, I was in the medical industry. I'm sure we'll get into that, somewhere. But getting into automotive, I wanted to have a fun personality, have a lot of different faces. So one of my videos, like when we were going out there doing a show, I did a whole Ric Flair imitation to announce that we were going to be at NADA, for example. And I had the whole demeanor of Ric Flair. And it was fun to portray that personality, be in a suit. And I took his lines like, I'm that, I said I was a white shirt wearing, Southwest flying, Hertz rental, woo! You know what I mean? I just took his lines. I made them kind of like into our industry and what I do. And it was fun to portray that character. So anyway,
I remember you doing that. And
well, good.
I think you've probably gotten a few of those woos in from the karaoke stage too, which we'll get into. We'll get into that too. It's so for people that have been tuned in, like, who are these guys? What's going on? Today, Steve is the vice president of sales at DriveCentric. I would rather hear from your voice. DriveCentric does what and for what industry?
Well, yeah, and actually just today, my title has changed.
Woo! Breaking news on what's going on with Shaun.
I figured. That was why I was late for the call. So my title is now changed to Chief Evangelist Officer.
Oh, that's perfect for you.
It totally is. Actually, and I can't even take credit for that, but actually I taught, Carrie Weiss, I think that's her actual title for TrueCar. And, and I always wanted to be like, Carrie goes around, does a lot of speaking. Shaun, you did a great job speaking all the time. And I remember your, speaking engagements. And actually, when you become, and really what the company has given me the opportunity is the face of the company, just like you were, and Bill Whitmire, and you can name all these people in automotive that are kind of like the face of the company. And I take it pretty seriously. And so I was like, man, I want to sell, but I like to educate. So anyway, so that's my new role. But DriveCentric, we're an automotive CRM company. We are probably a technology company. We say first, and we just happen to be in the automotive space. So with CRM, and everybody needs a CRM. When you're in automotive, you can connect all the dots. We just built what I guess I go out there and say is an iPhone, call it 10 or 12 or 11, whatever you want to call it, versus these other CRMs out there that were just built 20 years ago and look like a flip phone. So that's kind of the analogy that we always try to, portray is, there's so many things that have changed in 20 years. Why are you still on the same platform? Let alone you're not on the same cell phone. So why would you stay on the same platform? Just because that's what you know? Doesn't make sense.
Yeah. When you think about, especially from a sales perspective, when you think about the differentiating value of DriveCentric, this isn't me baiting you into if you want to eviscerate your competition and say horrible shit about them, I don't really care. But I know that's not your style. But I know that, for me, when my sales hat's on, I always kind of look for the things that help me be a challenger salesperson. So I want to know, I know what probably keeps you up at night, Mr. or Miss Dealer. But I think I know 3 or 4 things that should probably more importantly keep you up at night. And I always kind of frame that from a sales perspective. So from a DriveCentric perspective, are there a couple of things for you that are always like at the top? Like these are the things that you really see yourself as a differentiator if somebody's in the consideration of, okay, well, why DriveCentric for CRM?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll answer that. I got to go about it a little bit different because I'm not from automotive. And I had to learn a little bit about the customer. And
we just have to stop the podcast right here. You're not from automotive. And
I know, kicked me off. But, when I first got in automotive, first of all, I love CRM. That's the only reason why I got in automotive. But when it comes to selling a CRM, which is something I never sold before, I just believed in it because CRM has always helped me grow. So I learned and studied a little bit about the consumer aspects. And, what would keep me up at night knowing what I know today and what I've studied over the last several years is the customers are buying cars faster than ever. And there's so many dealers losing out on opportunities because they just can't see them right then and there. And now with obviously what's happened with, COVID, there's more internet leads coming in. And the message we've always been preaching for the last at least 4 years, maybe even longer, is it's a race to get engagement. If you are not talking to your customers, you're missing out. And so I always ask, what are the right tools for engagement? It's not email. It's not phone. It's texting and personalized video. So what we go out there and do is change the culture of the store to think differently on how to communicate with their customers. And that's why, quite frankly, our customer base is succeeding. You go out there, send an e-blast to all your friends and family. You're having a Super Bowl party. You'll be a party of one. Okay. Go call a customer that doesn't have your phone number programmed on their phone. And it's going to go to voicemail because you know why? There's settings on your phone that says, if you're not on my phone, you're going to go right to voicemail. Mm-hmm. I mean, it just, the communication patterns have changed so dramatically over the years. We have to think differently. And I will tell you, I'm actually thinking about doing this just as a fun little project, thinking about going Facebook Live and showing people how I sell. If I was to make 10 phone calls and how many people get on the phone, and then otherwise I'll just sit there and I'll be texting and you'll see how many customers I earned the right to get on the phone. So that's what I preach exactly what I do to make me successful. I don't care what you sell, if it's pencils, if it's CRM, if it's that's the way I think we need to think about any customer. Everybody's busy. Mm-hmm. Everybody's busy. And we got to, and customers know what they want. It's more of a service than it is a product, in my opinion. And I think if we treat it like that, then the customers have a better buying experience and journey with that dealership.
Is the DriveCentric CRM built in a way that you guys also use it as your CRM for your sales team, or do you guys have to use something that's more not so specific like a Salesforce or something, like more enterprise?
Well, yeah, no. And actually, what's kind of interesting, when I started with the company 6 years ago and we were a startup, we had 35 rooftops. So and I loved Salesforce. So you're talking to a guy that's been on Salesforce, Goldmine, Leapfrog, Act. I mean, I could name a lot of other CRMs outside the industry. DriveCentric, because in automotive CRM, it's very different than like the Salesforce, the HubSpots, because they're company based. Meaning, if I call on a dealership and I want to in DriveCentric, and I did use Drive as my own CRM for like 4 years, and we needed a database. We wanted to track customers if they were on our competitors or what DMS and things of that nature to do e-blast. We just couldn't do it effectively. Now, the good news is we use Salesforce right now. But I will tell you, the reason why I still do double entry is because of the video aspect. So I put all the information on the dealership in Salesforce, but I still use DriveCentric as a portion of my CRM to communicate with video. So, so I send videos out to a lot of dealers, and, like I said, it's double entry, but that's the importance of one aspect of our communication that I think that people relate to is they want to know who the hell they're dealing with.
Well, that's an example of there's a lot of people in not just our industry, but there's a lot of people that talk about how hard they hustle and grind and hustle and grind. And like, you just, okay. I mean, that's cool if you got time to post that on Instagram, but what you just said is an example of, okay, yeah, it's double entry, but in the real world of people that are working hard, you're just having to grind a little bit harder. You're having to hustle a little bit more because you know that it produces a result that will come only if you do so. So that's, that's a good thing. I was just curious to know in an industry where you're selling CRM, is it set up that's mostly catered to the vertical where you sell most of it? Or is it so broad that you can kind of eat your own dog food, that's difficult. HubSpot, Salesforce, Optimize, whatever. There's a bunch of them. You Leapfrog, Act. There's Nutshell. I don't know if you ever use Nutshell. I used Nutshell for a while. There's so many of them that it's mind numbing to think about how you could accommodate multiple verticals and then get salespeople to use it. Right.
Well, and we've been people that have left the automotive industry. They've asked for DriveCentric in those tools in their arena. But I'll give you a perfect example. Like, I would have to build up in automotive, you're selling one person, not a company. So it's just different from that perspective. If I've got, like a general manager, general sales manager, internet director, BDC manager, other sales managers, et cetera. In Salesforce, I build it up one time and I could build up all the contacts underneath that company and I could email them all in Salesforce. That's the advantage of it. If I had to do that in DriveCentric right now, at least today, but see, I've actually challenged them because I said, man, I could sell DriveCentric in other industries. When I first got on board, I said, can I sell this to the medical people? Because I said, the power of video is there and nobody else is doing it. Salesforce isn't doing it.
Yeah.
So I know that I could sell DriveCentric in any other industry just because of the power of the communication portal that we have available. So.
Yeah. So I have a couple other questions that I wanted to ask you about DriveCentric, but I want to back up a little bit. One, how long have you been now in the automotive industry?
Just celebrated 6 years.
Okay, yeah. So you need to find somebody at DriveCentric that has a really big beard. And you need to come up with
plenty of those.
The beard and the hair too, right? Yeah. Gifford, you got into it when Gifford and I were still at DealerOn, and when you talked about like go live with Drive, it just was like it happened. It wasn't planned. That's exactly what happened with the whole beard and the hair at DealerOn. Yeah. Because Greg had the idea that he'd been doing for years at other companies as well. It's like, let's do a tip video every week. So we did the Wednesday workshop, and we were shooting one episode. And for whatever reason, I just kind of was like, I don't know, just freelancing it's the beard and the hair. And then somebody heard it. I don't remember if it was Greg's wife or my wife, or maybe both of our wives had seen and they were like, that's a thing. You guys got to like run with that.
Oh yeah, no, and I remember when you guys dressed up as '80s rockers. You know what I mean?
We did.
Yeah. I mean, and Greg, when you guys present, I've never seen so many slides that you guys can bolt through as fast as you guys did. I mean, that was probably always one of them, besides the rockers. But how many slides Gifford can go through? Like,
oh yeah,
boom.
He's I'll just humble brag. I was already a damn good presenter before Greg Gifford came into my life. But I can say this, and I hope he would say the same thing. I think that he and I did the whole iron sharpening iron, or you improve each other, Yeah. The time that we got to work together at DealerOn, I learned some stuff from his style and some thematic things that he loves to do. And I did more thematic presentations when we were there together than I had ever done before. Like the whole prioritizing your digital marketing decisions based on Metallica. I would have never thought about that if not for him. But he can cover way more slides than I can. So he and I did a lot of that. And I think we, I hate to say it this way, but it'll be funny because if he listens to this, he'll laugh. I think we rubbed off on each other pretty well.
Yeah. Well, you know, when you have a sidekick, it makes it easy. I mean, doing like, you know, if you're doing just I don't know how people do like one interview, you know what I mean, without a sidekick, because it's like for me, I mean, I could do these types of things all the time, but if you don't have somebody else with you that you bounce like, just bounce off conversations. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't know how many people would just listen to me talk.
It's funny that you bring up the 80s metal garb that we did for Driving Sales. Driving Sales was the only event where Greg and I would exclusively do a presentation we'd never, ever done anywhere else before. And we would both co-present at that event. That was something that we talked to Jared and Bart and the team over at DSCS about, that we would always do that for them because, you know, we always, you know, had a very packed room and people like they came to like know that they were going to get some sort of entertainment value along with a lot of just rapid fire SEO and SEM kind of fire hose, good content. And that was fun.
I'm actually just talking about that. I had some ideas and, I mean, it's kind of interesting. Like I thought about doing the Greatest Showman type scenario. But I mean, playing the song, because there's a lot of things like with video, if you watch, Come Alive, that's really like what I thought about doing a presentation with the whole theory of come alive, because that's what video has done. It's having you come alive. If you listen to the lyrics of that song, it's pretty sick. So I thought about dressing up like, what is his name? Hugh. Right. Yeah. Coming in with the hat on and stuff like that. Stumbling in the days.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that one of the keys to a great presentation is being confident in whatever you're going to deliver. And you probably get this too, where people see you and they experience, you know, a presentation delivered by you. And then they're like, man, I could never do that. Like you just have such a great personality and you kind of glow and that sparkle comes off and people feel that. And there's a magnetism that's created. But I always try to tell people that deliver in a much more like kind of even keeled or a little bit flatter, you know, I'm like, you got to realize that there are people that deliver content in a very flat manner. I'm a huge Jordan Peterson fan from a psychology, you know, kind of person. I listen to all kinds of Jordan Peterson lectures from the time he was at Harvard all the way to University of Toronto. He is not a dynamic speaker or presenter, but what he is presenting, he is, you know, masterful in what he's saying and how he's delivering it, that I hang on every word of it. So I always just tell people, whatever it is, like go do your thing. But in our industry, there is, to be fair, there is something to be said for those people that own their personality, especially if they're a charismatic person, which you are. And I think that's one of the ways and reasons why you have connected well with people. It's been great for DriveCentric, but your personal brand, all the way back to the wrestlers and all those other, your personal brand is one where you don't hide it. You know, you're not putting it under a cover of any kind. It comes out when you present. It comes out when you're doing video and all that you do, and that's a really important factor.
Oh, and I appreciate that. You know, I guess coming from, I mean, it's always good to hear. You know what I mean? Because you don't know if you rub people the wrong way. And I guess over a certain age, you get comfortable saying, if you don't like me, it's okay. You know, you're not going to be liked by everybody. But, you know, being in the medical industry and, you know, when I used to present to doctors and pharmacists, you know, just imagine me presenting to a doctor and I couldn't do a lot of the stuff that I'm doing. And so when I got into automotive, you know, and you know, this gentleman who I'm getting ready to mention, and I may have even told you about this, is, you know, one of the first conferences I went to was NADA to kind of learn a little bit about the competition and, you know, go visit the booths and see what automotive was all about. And one of the speakers I saw was Bill Whitmire. present. And, and I always said, after I saw him present, and Bill's got a real fire and passion the way he speaks and stuff. And I always said, and I told our CEO this, I said, that's the guy I want to be for DriveCentric. You know what I mean? That's
sure.
Very passionate. I know, like I said, I learned a lot just from listening to him. And I was like, man, if he could do that, I could do that,
Yeah.
So, I was fortunate enough just recently, Bill sat in on one of my presentations. I was just, I mean, that right there, when he was in one of my speaking engagements, I just felt like honored. Yeah. You know what I mean? That he was in my presentation. And I don't know, it felt like, I belong. Like, I guess that's the thing. You always kind of wonder at what point do you fit in? And that was kind of like probably a turning point for me, just when that, people like Bill were in my presentation. And maybe it was, spying on me too. I don't know. But,
there's plenty of that. And
sure.
As you, I'm sure, know by now, 6 years in, there's literally been plenty of shots fired in the shark-infested competitive arena of CRM and automotive world. I've known Bill for years. He's always been a really good friend and good guy, and he as a presenter, there's a reason why people show up, and I would take it as a sign of, probably interested competitively of like, what's this guy saying? But I would also take it as a sign of mutual respect. He's not going to walk in a room. It'd be the same thing if, Shaun Stapleton walked in too. He was he was around CRM a lot too, and those two had lots of. Maybe they still are. I don't know. I kind of came at that whole competitive thing a lot differently, and let me make that into a question. See what your thoughts are on this. In the website space, I still am this way. Was always much more interested in being competitively friendly with everybody. And I learned that before I was at DealerOn. I worked for Reynolds and Reynolds when they made the acquisition of a company called Automark. There's actually been two companies now that have served the industry called Automark. But Automark was a website company that the Boyces, David Boyce and his father, and they had built up this whole company. They had a big training division, half a car, and Reynolds made this big acquisition. And I was on their lead provider team that was like a joint venture with Microsoft in Seattle. And so I got into this company. The biggest competitor that was out there and who had more market share than anyone was Cobalt, right? And so it was kind of Cobalt, Automark. And then after that, there was Dealer Skins came along, and Jason Izell and all these guys, and it all started growing and growing. I was never really interested in having these adversarial relationships with people that I competed with. All the way into the time that I spent at DealerOn. I remember the first time I met Joe Chura, and some of his team. And I immediately wanted to tell him like, hey, good job. I would rather lose business to someone knowing what their intention is. And if I feel like they're going to do a good job for the dealer, that's just me. Doesn't mean I'm not going to try as hard to win the business. I don't want to lose it, but I've always had that approach. And so I don't have a bunch of stories to tell of like, well, I've always had a competitive rivalry and it's gotten ugly at times with people. I don't have a lot of those stories because it's just never how I've wanted to play the game. Do you have any stories there, or how you kind of?
No, I mean, I play the same as you. I just think competition is, if there wasn't any competition, we wouldn't have jobs, right? I mean, and I play nice in the sandbox if, I'm friends with guys at Dealer Socket, at VIN, at eLead, at CRM Suite. We all are in this together. At the end of the day, it's the decision of the business which way they want to go.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's so funny because just at this last NADA, before all this stuff happened. I mean, I was at the CDK party and I got a picture with me, Bill, and all the guys from eLead on the dance floor. And I mean, we stumble across. I mean, I can tell you that, one of the fun things that I do have, like if there is, a dealer, for example, that was looking at DriveCentric, and let's say was looking at eLead, and we have done this before, so this is kind of a fun. We kind of did a revenge of the dealer because the dealer was actually playing me and the guy at eLead. Okay. So what we did was, he's like, hey man, do you know what's going on here? I'm like, yeah, I know what's going on here. They're playing both of us. So let's just schedule a demo together with the dealer. Let's just put our cards on and people. And those are fun. You know what I mean? It's just like, hey, you want to say something? It's like they know our system, we know their system. There's pitfalls to both, and just don't play one price on another. We know what he's playing. We know what we're playing. So that is kind of fun. I guess life's too short, and you never know, if people come to work for you eventually, or I don't know. It's just I don't want that animosity. I never had that in any industry. This is my third industry, so I've always played nice with all my competitors, and part of life,
Yeah, I think so too. So how long were you in the medical industry? Is that the last industry before the jump to automotive?
Yeah, so 16 years on the medical side.
Okay, so what were you doing there? You're selling something. What were you selling?
Well, yeah, I was a drug dealer.
What drugs? Prozac, Oxy. What was your?
Oh yeah, Oxycontin. No, I was. When I first got into medical, I was a pharmaceutical rep, like many people, and that was when it was really good in the day, right? So I sold thyroid medication. I sold a product called Laboxil. I created a saying like, "I'm here to preach the gospel of Laboxil." That was my saying. I always still remember. And my competitor was Synthroid. So I said, I'm here to preach the gospel of Laboxil and take the sin out of your life, doctor.
Wow.
I know. It's pretty
good.
Is that pretty good?
So, so is medical and pharmaceutical, they're just the same?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, now, again, when I got into pharmaceuticals, then I went to go work for Wyeth, which then got bought by Pfizer. So I sold some proton pump inhibitors, which is for heartburn, so GERD, Protonics, and I sold IV, so we were taking care of gastric bleeds and things of that nature. And then I sold a big gun antibiotic, kind of like, you go into, you would have like a vancomycin. I sold Zosyn, so it's a big gun antibiotic. But then in the medical industry, you can only go so far in the world of pharma. Otherwise, you got to go up to corporate. My dream, and I always was a patient advocate. That's what I became. And when you're in medicine, that's how you can kind of talk to people, or doctors or pharmacists. If you're talking in terms of the patient and getting good therapeutic responses, you speak in terms of that. So my goal was to always get into medical devices and then get in the operating room. So I got an opportunity to work with Medtronic. A lot of people know Medtronic as the defibrillator companies doing pacemakers and things of that nature. I went a different route. I got on the neuro side for a very short time. And there's a reason why I'm telling this story, but it's going to be educational here in a second. But I was doing spinal cord stimulation, deep brain stimulation, and pain pumps for neuropathic pain patients. So if you had lower back pain and it was going down to your foot or, your arm, or, if you had like even, occipital neuralgia is what they call it, they would put like electrodes on your brain and stimulate them. And basically it inhibits the pain going to your signals to your brain instead of you taking so much drugs and being all warped out on it. So the goal was with that therapy is reduce your medical in your drug intake and, inhibit the brain, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, I learned at Medtronic, when you own 90% of the market, it's very easy to lose your job and hard to defend. So it was so I got weeded out of Medtronic after about 6 months. It was just it's probably one of the more disturbing dark sides of my days. When you think, because when you're in medical, that's kind of like your dream job to get to the pillar, which is implantable devices. And so when I lost my job, it hurt my family, financially, all that fun stuff. And that's when I got into my first startup opportunity, and I started testing drugs. So, that I went to go work for a startup. It was called Dynalabs. It's here in St. Louis, Missouri. And, I was checking the efficacy of drugs and see if it was sterile for a lot of compounding pharmacies. So, if anybody's taken any like steroid injections or fertility injections or, progesterone type pills, I used to test those for a lot of compounders all across the country. And then that spilled into the hospital market. So I started teaching hospitals how to do a business model called central fill. So they became their own kind of like pharmacy instead of outsourcing so much. And they saved millions of dollars by doing that. So it was pretty cool. I mean, I learned a lot. But that, I went into another startup for a while, and then I got into DriveCentric. So that's my story on medical, though.
Wow, that is a lot of. Well, you said something. So great info. It's fascinating. You said something that I think is probably relative in automotive, in that you had a period that became the patient focus, right? That's where your focus. And so today at DriveCentric, I'm guessing that it's the car buyer that's the focus, similar to the patient, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, because
ultimately the experience that's being provided to them is largely facilitated by proper usage of all the tools available inside of a CRM.
Right. Well, and here's the story is, I'll be the first one to tell you, when I first got into this market, I'm like, it's the car industry. I mean, come on. Right. I mean, but I'll tell you, I have just saying it now, there's a great deal of respect for this industry in all facets. I mean, come on, there's a lot in this industry. You got to just know. Yeah. But, it was very intimidating. I could say for the first year, because I'd never sold a car. And here, how am I going to tell somebody how to use, let's say, a CRM if I've never sold a car? Mm-hmm. And, it was hard. It was hard to relate to it. So, again, it just took me a little while to connect with the industry, to get over that fear factor, I guess, so to speak. So when I went to a dealership, I'm not an outlier, being spotted like, oh, this guy's never sold a car. So I started studying the customer buying behavior, the customer's journey, and then how our product really fits into the dealership. And I really speak to it from that perspective. And I think, the customers, like I said, there's so much knowledge out there, as far as, and this, I really believe this, because if you really think about what's going on in the medical side, I mean, think about everybody right now, listening to this. I mean, and even you, Shaun, if you have a disease, you're going to research it. You're going to be informed. You're going to get educated on. You might as well be a doctor of that disease. Mm-hmm. So when you go to the doctor's office, you already know what medication you should be on, what the side effects are going to be. You already know. So you're basically going to the doctor and you're telling them, hey, this is what I want. That's essentially what the customers are doing. The customers know more about the car probably than the salesperson. All we got to do is serve them, as like Tim Cox always says, right? We need to serve them. Just help them out. Help them out understand, like if they have credit problems and things of that nature, just help the customer and you'll win the deal. So that's the way I kind of have gone about this industry, and taking it from those set of lenses versus what we all do every day for the last probably 20 years in the automotive industry. It's like getting rid of that head trash,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great perspective. I mean, our industry is definitely an interesting one for sure. It's been the only one. My whole professional career has all been auto industry. Like started long before the internet, started in a parts warehouse, learned a whole parts warehousing, managing delivery routes, all this kind of stuff. It was, met a girl and I was in junior college in this music program, still married to her now. It's all been automotive. So I don't know these, correlations that you can make between medical and automotive, but it makes sense. It doesn't surprise me that you can find these identifiable like attributes that make things common or similar. I don't know if you know this. I have this Hot Wheels story. I've done videos about it.
I know your Hot Wheels story.
So
you shared that with me way back when. I remember this. Go ahead.
Most people know it. I'll give you the short version because you know it. If there's anybody in this audience that's not heard it, I'd be shocked. But it comes from something that you've had to experience where you know that somebody across the desk or inside of a dealership is basically disqualifying you because you've never sold a car in your life. And I experienced this when I was a young guy. I like to say I'm not Luke anymore. I'm Yoda. When I was still Luke in the swamp and didn't know my ass from a hole in the ground, it was, hey, I want to talk to you about these CarPoint leads and Microsoft and Reynolds. And we got these cool leads and you can buy from these people on the internet. They'll come right on your fax machine. maybe 40% of the dealers in the country had a website at the time. So they were literally working these things off fax machine. And I was all excited about this. And like, the internet customer is going to be huge. It's going to be transformative and blah, 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 blah. And anyone that didn't want to hear about it just asked one question. Have you ever sold a car in your life? And for the first, year or two that I got that question, I didn't have a good answer for it. I understood why it was being asked. It irritated me. My nature is pretty kind and merciful. Whether I like that or not is completely different. You can't fight some of those things. That might just be some sort of spiritual thing that dictates your being. But I'm a nice person, so I never was really mean about it. Even though I wanted to say, well, have you ever built a website in your life? I mean, you could turn the table on somebody just to try to get their attention, but I didn't. I didn't tell my employer at the time because you weren't allowed to do it. I went and found a Chevy dealer that would allow me to sell cars nights and weekends. So I did sell a car in my life. And so I was able to turn that around and I'm like, yeah, I actually have sold cars. And now I have a better idea because I had to do it after my regular day job when kids came into the dealership by the ton. And I started giving out Hot Wheels. And next thing you knew, it was me reminding myself that it's a very much a people-oriented business for sure. But I got
here. I got my answer for you. And I'll tell you what I say. I mean, I've got two answers actually. I say, the short answer that is kind of like the punch, right? What's that?
GFY. That's the shortest answer. GFY. Go.
Oh, okay. I never heard. Okay, my gosh, all these acronyms. Holy cow, man! It's like you got
the car business CRM boy. Come on.
Okay, that makes sense.
CRM, SEO.
I'm sure I'll get heckled from all your audiences. I'm going to get my phone blow up. Go FI. Go FY. I can't even say it right.
It means go for YOLO. No, I don't.
I got another great story on an acronym though that I learned. I'll just have to tell you. That's a whole other story. But no, if somebody says, "Have you ever sold a car?" I always say, "I've never sold anything in my life except the person." I always sell the person. I don't sell anything but the person. So that's my short answer. I was like, now if I really want to, they said, so you never really sold a car. I'm like, you know what? Let me tell you something. If the customer is buying a car in 14 days, 80% of the time, let me tell you, I sell a CRM that's a 6-month to let's say 9-month sales cycle. I guarantee I'll sell it.
Yeah.
So go sell a CRM and let me know how you do, or, try to get on the hospital formulary, buddy, like, come on. It takes to sell a hospital is 1 year. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
Why are you being so hard on me, Karen? Come on.
Yeah. Now, speaking of acronyms, and I got to think about this. What is the acronym? One of my buddies, they were doing this mass email. What was that acronym? I got to come back and think about it, man. My old age is coming up, but he had this great acronym. Forget it. I lost it.
It's cool. No problem.
It's my
I got something for you on a couple things because we're burning through time really quickly. So, and there's a few things I still want to get to. So one is, how frequently do you come across dealers that have, it's been years since they updated anything about how the processes, templates, about how their CRM is set up? Because my experience is one where dealers, some of them have such, they're collecting dust. You wrote that automated response when? 2007? Yeah. What?
Well, I was going to say, we came on the show, 30 minutes? So just to call it an hour before we got on here. Yes, that was my conversation. But I think every dealership, for the most part, again, it's like I used to secret shop stores all the time. I'm getting back into doing it just to kind of get rid of my head trash. This is what I'm going to be getting as a consumer and think differently. I started doing that again. But yeah, the automated responses that are just that I get, it's insane. It's just not, Again, it's like, I don't have a template myself. Okay. I mean, like, look, it just give you an idea. I guess, cause we'll get into this is, you know, when I got in automotive, I didn't know what a business rule was. I never heard of a business rule. And so my buddy, you know, when he came on board, he goes, a business rule is when you go out there and you have these automatic rules at day 1, day 2, day 3. And I'm like, are you serious? You get an internet lead and you have to tell somebody to call them? Right. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay. But whatever. Okay. So we're beyond that now. Now I know what a business rule is. But with the customers and how frequently people are following up and wasting time from a business perspective, I don't think they're listening to the customers. I think they're hanging on to every deal. Like, you know, the buy or die mentality. I'm sorry. That's gone, in my opinion. I just think that the dealerships that are spending their wheels, spending their resources, having their people follow up on a customer, like even like, in my opinion, 60 to 90 days, it's a waste of time. Waste of time. Now, granted, can you sell a car in that time? 100%. But how many, my question would be is, what are the opportunities lost because you're redirecting all your emphasis in that 60 to 90 day window when the customers buying a car are in that 80% window of 14 days? And it's just a shift in mentality. So I think in the automotive industry, I think a lot of dealers they're afraid to miss out on every single opportunity. But yet when they look at their internet closing percentages, I mean, that's where they're sacrificing. They're getting all these leads and they're closing at, let's say, 10% at best.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think everybody's internet lead closing percentage is higher because of COVID, but I think there's a lot of things that are sacrificed. And yeah, I mean, I think, why would you pay somebody for 100 calls a day? That is about the dumbest stat. I just want to know they're making 100 calls a day, Steve. Well, okay. What is that really doing for you, though?
Well, right? Are you going to listen to the quality of the 100 calls?
Hell no is the answer. I think you guys even say that in your speech, right? If I remember, you guys will say, you guys don't listen to your calls. Let's be real. But you know, I'd almost be, I don't know. It's just hard to change. And I think the OEMs, actually, some of the OEMs are listening about text messaging being, you know, the texting is the number one form of communication. And most people don't even text their CRM. Then you got to worry about the CCPA laws and all that fun stuff. Yeah. So there's just a lot. And personalized video, nobody's doing personalized videos or, you know, which is a great opportunity. I mean, look, at least Gephardt, man, I'll give her props. Before I ever got into this industry, she was doing a lot of video training, man. Hats off to Elise and then other people like Joe Webb who are really big about video. It's just that people still aren't doing it though.
Yeah. Yeah. And video is, I mean, and you know this as well as probably anybody. I mean, Elise is a great example. She's been a pioneer, a trailblazer there for a long time on the dealer side. I mean, coming out of retail herself, I mean, she sharpened her axe, you know, literally on the battlefield. But there's one thing about the Elise Gephardts of the world that, and she knows that, everybody knows this. You can teach all those concepts to lots of people, but maybe 2 out of, I don't know what the ratio is, but maybe 2 out of 100 actually have the wherewithal or ability to do it. And so you have to keep reinforcing, right? Because you do a lot of advocacy around the importance and the effectiveness that is very difficult to dispute. But that doesn't mean, I mean, sometimes you're taking Harvard education and you're trying to get the kindergartners to understand it and apply it. And that's not easy. That's difficult.
No, it's hard. And that's why I think, you know, if I was a dealership and I'm interviewing people, you know, one of the things that I'd be looking for is, I mean, and look, Glenn Lundy, I still remember going over to Dan Cummins Chevy when he was over there. And talking to him and Josh, and I love what they do at that dealership is they don't, anybody that has like, I think it's 1 year or less experience in the dealership, you know, they'll hire. Anything more than that, they won't. And they try to get everybody from the restaurant industry and the service industry so they don't have that head trash coming from another dealership on, oh, this is the way we're going to do it. And I think that's the reason why that store has been so successful. Just the mentality of, the salespeople that are there. I would never hire somebody that didn't have a smartphone. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm saying that even 6 years ago when I first got in this. And I used to go to dealerships. I'm like, you have a flip phone?
Yeah.
Like, this is your business and you have a flip phone?
Yeah.
I mean, and I know it's hard to come by, but I think that I've talked to medical people. I mean, that I worked with. Actually, I'm talking to a guy right now. He's out of a job. And I told him, I said, dude, you would clean it up in the car business. Mm-hmm. Just because the mentality of other industries, number one, they've been trained, right? I've gone through extensive training in sales, whether it was Dale Carnegie, Sandler, and things of that nature. Just imagine salespeople who are educated in sales going to go work for a dealership. I mean, and that's the one thing that's lacking is education. And understanding how to talk to a customer. And I'm kind of old school, I don't know if you feel this way, but, I've always had people tell me you're either born with sales or you're not. There's no real in between, and I think people want to try to be good in sales and they'll succeed, but, hopefully, but they also, it's almost like you extend yourself and you become something you're really not. Mm-hmm. And then that wears on you and you wind up getting frustrated and you leave. I mean, it's like there's really good stories just from if you go out there and look at disc analysis, that's been an old one that's been out there. Yep. And I could tell stories about that. But if somebody's trying to stretch and try to be politically correct and talk to somebody with a very sensitive attitude, it's hard.
Oh yeah,
it's hard.
So yeah, I don't disagree. I'm curious on the topic of marketing. Mm-hmm. DriveCentric would be considered in the B2B category, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so B2B marketing is there are similarities and then there are differences. There are differences in terms of which channels are more effective and how fast they produce revenue generating opportunities for the DriveCentrics versus the dealers who are doing their marketing directly to the consumer. Right. So I don't know how familiar you are with DriveCentric's marketing approach, but my question is, if you are somewhat familiar, where does DriveCentric focus for the people that are on this, listening to this podcast, maybe watching this podcast that are B2B marketers? Do you have any, best practices or tips or the channels that you guys frequent? And has that changed this year because of COVID?
Yeah, right now, look, we're a small company. I mean, we just got a marketing department really not too long ago. So really I've been the marketing department. Okay. That's the reality of it. Now I was always told sales and marketing are kind of one of the same. And, so actually the previous startup I was a part of, I was actually the director of marketing. He actually sold me on that idea, but I said, dude, I'm a sales guy. He goes, you don't know it, but you're a marketing guy. I was like, I don't think so. I said, I'm not artsy or anything. But, really what he was saying was, the way I go out there and approach and create the ideas or the brand awareness or education, that's really what I think I try to do from a marketing side. I'm going to piggyback on to what I did in the medical industry. You couldn't go out there and speak in front of doctors and pharmacists and be a commercial. So for 16 years, I'm not saying I spoke for 16 years, but for probably a good 8 years when I was speaking in medical, I could never say except, hey, Steve Roessler, Dynalabs, or Steve Roessler, Medtronic. I mean, that was it. Everything else was about a therapeutic, response and patient awareness and case studies, right? Mm-hmm. So when I started, at least with Medtronic or with DriveCentric, I mean, I was doing some goofy videos, just doing anything video just to get some attention out there. And I was just spraying and seeing what works. And I really don't know what works. But when you go to a trade show and somebody said, dude, I love your Ric Flair imitation. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, so you watch that? You know what I mean?
Right.
So now I'm starting to get on the speaker circuit, NADA, I just got on the first NADA speakers list. So that I'm going to be speaking at NADA, which that was kind of like the epitome right there. Just honored that I got finally selected to get on that. But, they're doing the David Kane event. That's where it first all started for me. I love David Kane, great guy. And just passionate about the industry. He really fit the mold, actually. And he taught me a lot, just about the auto industry just over the years, working with him and things of that nature.
Yeah, he's a great guy to learn from, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, going out there and market, I think you just gotta. I was more the networking marketing guy, So I always, when I was in medical, I did a speaking engagement actually at one of the shows on, how pharmacists need to work with doctors, and it was about aligning your network. And I basically gave an analogy of a chain link. You can have a lot of people you say you network with, which probably makes you ineffective. You don't have an effective network. So the smaller links to your chain are really the key to a successful network. Mm-hmm. And so that's the way I always went out there and did it. So I aligned myself with, I went out there, I interviewed and talked to a lot of consultants when I first got in this. And it was hard. I get that they wanted, oh man, we could sell your product and help direct business and give me a finder's fee and things of that nature. And I spent a lot of times with probably 24 people out there, and they didn't bring me one lead. Mm-hmm. And they're busy, they're selling other things, and I get it. But that was a chance I took. I almost saw I dropped my computer there. After I started going out there, align myself with the folks in the OEM industry, and I started bringing some of the stuff I did in medical, just educating. And once I became known as an educator, and I wasn't going out there and promoting, because many of the OEMs, or you go to these 20 groups, or you align people with David Kane, as long as I think what I try to do is market myself as I'm trying to help the automotive industry. And I knew that approach was probably going to be longer for a guy like us, and who's not spending a lot of money on marketing. And, we weren't hardly going to trade shows or things of that nature, just because we were a startup. So you have to kind of look at other avenues that could work. And I just knew that it was probably a little bit longer, but I think that would be, I hope that people, when they hear me speak or if they watch any of the videos, like I put a lot of stuff and I direct everybody to YouTube. So that's what we're currently doing. I think with this whole COVID thing, I had a wake up call, says, let's just put everything on YouTube. And I go out there and provide content that I hope people just look at. It's fun. It's educational. That's the way I like to learn, is fun while you educate. So yeah, you're going to see things in there that's fun. Then you'll also see a serious side where I'm presenting on case studies. So that's one of the other things I'm trying to do, is bring some of the stuff from the medical industry into the automotive industry, and work with dealers on their changes and how those changes have affected their business. And then I interview. Just recently, I've been interviewing the Capital Auto Group out of Salem, Oregon. Since you're from that neck of the woods, you may know that group up there. But they've been just killing it. And so what I do is I let them shine, and I just ask them questions and let dealerships learn. Mm-hmm. So that's the way I'm going out there marketing today. I've kind of, done a little bit of a different approach, but yet I still have my presentations. And, but we are getting a marketing person. We have a marketing person. They're putting a lot of stuff out there, our posts and things of that nature. But like, we haven't done really that many e-blasts and things of that nature. I think what dealers want to know is, what are other dealerships doing? I think when, CRM is such of a big deal, it's hard. It's got to be the right timing. That's reality. And so when I go in there, I approach any dealer. I'm like, look, this is a step 1 of a step 10 process. Let's be real. I said, if anybody comes in and selling you a CRM today, you're going to sign today, I would, that's crazy. I would never recommend that to any business owner. It touches everybody. So, and the other thing too is, like, here's another approach. I haven't done this that much, but again, coming from the medical industry, I'll tell you one of my other ways of going out there saying what a big decision this is I basically would say, when I was in the OR, I was in there to help the doctor implant the device, right? And like, Shaun, if you were on the operating table, you would say, Steve, I want you there with my orthopedic surgeon. That you would want that. Mm-hmm. So I tell every dealer, you have to think of a CRM as literally a partner. So I'm there to help your business succeed. Just no difference. Like, I'm there to help the doctor have a good patient therapeutic effect, make sure they implant, let's say, whatever. I don't want to get all medical, but the whole thing is I was there for the dealer, and that's the way I approach it. I'm there to help you grow your business. Mm-hmm. And otherwise you're just selling software. Who do you want to work with? And it's really your call. And I mean that sincerely. That's the way I approach it. I want every one of our dealerships to succeed and get better. I think that dealerships want to sell more cars, but they don't have the answers on how. And that's why I'm just saying, hey, talk to more customers and you schedule more appointments. You just got to talk to them the right way. Mm-hmm. So that's the way I go out there and market. It's kind of a long answer. There's a lot of different ways, but it's like, as we start to evolve, I mean, we'll do all the trade shows and things of that nature, but I think we're growing in the right pattern. We didn't want to grow and market ourselves let's be real, VIN Solutions, right? VIN blew up and then sold to Cox. We are here for the long haul. And we did an interview with David Kane way back when. And it's probably still around, floating around. But we basically said we didn't want to outgrow our customer base. We believe in supporting our customers. So we're not just launching a bunch of stores and just forgetting about customer service. We're trying to grow the right way so we don't lose focus of what got us to where we're at. So I think people are like, that's bull. I'm like, that's the reality. I mean, we have right now 480 rooftops. We were doing like 2 rooftops basically a week all of this year. Now we're ramping up, or we're going to expand that in 2021. But, that's a very good growth for a small company.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, for sure. How do you think things are going to play out with conferences? They just have pretty much all went virtual for the year, and what do you think is going to happen there? And is that going to, let's just assume that maybe they do come back, but I'm curious to know your thoughts on that. When do you think that might happen? And then, if you guys will, continue to invest in them the way that you have, or if this year has taught you something that maybe you're going to approach it differently.
Yeah. It's a great question. I'll tell you what, I really hope conferences come back. I think a lot of us are all ready for this to be over with. Quite frankly, it's just, I think people want to talk to people, I keep saying this, you can come out of this and you can be thinking one of two things. I'm never going to shake anybody else's hand, or you're going to come out of this, you're going to be like, Shaun, then the first time I see you, I'm going to give you a big hug, and I may offend you, but I'm a touchy-feely person, and I think, can you imagine being awkward and doing elbows all the time and stuff like that? I don't know. That's me, yeah. But you got to be respectful of others, and I get it. And, and again, because I came from the medical side, you always got to be cautious of the environment you're in and who you're around. Actually, one of the things that you could watch, Shaun, it's actually kind of interesting, just because I'm thinking about it right now. There's actually a good video called the Cleveland Clinic, What You Don't Know What Other People Are Thinking. Okay. If you get past the first 1 minute of it, I'll be shocked. It'll make you cry. But it really gives you the opportunity to, really think about what patients go through in the hospital. And we used to have to watch that in sales training in the medical industry, because you couldn't go out there and be a clown in a hospital because you don't know what's going on with other people, right? Even in the cafeteria. Mm-hmm. So, when you go to these trade shows, you almost got to wonder. I'm just thinking about that video, like, does this person have a poor immune system, or would they even be there? And you just got to worry about stuff like that. I think about that stuff, but and hopefully if people do have a poor immune system, they're doing the right precautions and things they need to do. So look, overall, I want conferences to happen. I would be more worried about, who's going to show up from the dealer side. Would dealers still show up? I've talked to many dealers. They wanted to come back. But, I almost think that, I like the small conferences personally. I think, you go to the David Kane conferences or, any of these other conferences that are really small. I prefer that more than anything. But I think there's an opportunity out there for an outlet for dealers to learn about other products besides trade shows. And that's what's got to wind up happening.
Mm-hmm.
I think there could be a good network within 20 groups potentially to offer that. Hey, I'd like to introduce you to people that impact my business. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, there you got to have, I think, trustworthy partners if you're going to do stuff like that. And I don't know. I mean, it's a great question, but I hope overall trade shows come back.
Have you followed the progression of the automotive State of the Union?
I have not. It's like so hard to watch anything. I don't know how anybody watches my stuff. I'm busy as it. Yeah. But no, I haven't. I mean, I've caught maybe little bits and pieces. You're talking about what's his name, right?
Paul Daly.
Paul Daly. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was an interesting concept, and now it looks like he's going to put up a live event in Philadelphia in a few weeks.
Oh,
small. Yeah, that'll be interesting. I mean, it'll be interesting that there was already an interest and kind of a demand for, hey, we need to collectively gather and share ideas and information. I think that conferences already before COVID needed to have a serious reality check on, well, are we really actually presenting content to dealers that are actually going to, educate them to do something that they don't already know, that they haven't already heard 100 million times before? Like, we don't have a knowledge problem. We have a doing problem. And many industries do. I have loved all the years being a conference speaker. I mean, it's always fun. It's always good. It's kind of like a freaking high school reunion. You have fun. You see people. But the big payoff is when you actually hear from a dealer who says, I got your Hot Wheels story like 10 years ago.
Yeah, those are
great.
You
give out Hot Wheels all the time. It literally makes this, as you say, makes the sales tension just go down because we show that we care about their child. And so they don't feel as threatened. I love hearing those stories. I love it when somebody says, oh, I work at an agency. I come to all of your talks on paid search because I didn't know about this beforehand. Or, those are always really, I think, for the presenters, when you get that payoff, then it's still good. But you know what? After it goes on and on and on and on for a while, sometimes there's a diminishing return. And then you have to think about, well, is it the content? Is it me? Is it the presenters? And I think there's a real wide open space, and maybe now's the time for there to be some rethinking around how to win conferences, because I think they will in some capacity. Clearly, Paul Daly and the Automotive State of the Union thing, he's now turned that into, maybe it's going to be a one and done. I don't think so, based on just looking at what he's been building with that. Probably not a one and done. But there was already a lot of competition. Brian Pash has been doing events for years, and a couple of his have become like the crown jewels for PCG's events. Mm-hmm. The one that's upcoming for him, I attended it for the first time. The Automotive Attribution and Analytics and Attribution Summit.
Yes.
Yep, that one. I attended that for the first time last year, and I was thoroughly impressed with the content. I thought they did a really good job with that event. I've attended David Kane's events, although David, you won't listen to this podcast. If you do, then prove to me that you even have my cell phone number. Text me and say, Shaun, you're always welcome to attend my events anytime you want, because you are an industry pioneer and people love you. But he won't. So whatever. There you go, David. I love David Kane, and I've always thought really highly of how he puts on his event too. I think it's really well done.
Well, here's the other thing too. While you were talking, it had me thinking a little bit is, like you go out to these trade shows, and I mean, it doesn't matter what industry, right? I mean, it's a gathering. It's a reason to get out. That's what I think of that, dealers, whether it was NADA, digital dealer, it's like, hey, I'm going to go learn something. I mean, there's really more about the content. But if the timing was there, then they would go look at, let's say, CRMs or websites or digital retailing tools or chat, whatever it was. Or they would renegotiate the contract, or they think, hey, I'm going to go to NADA, and that's when all the specials were happening, right? I mean, that's really what it became, because like nobody just walks the show floor. If you're a dealer, you know that you're going to a show and you're like, you circle the booths you're going, and they don't look at anybody else. They do everything they can. They're on their cell phone, acting like they're texting, which I would too. Hey, when I wore that dealer badge 6 years ago, acting like I was a dealer, man, I'm telling you, I felt like I was a little girl walking through whatever. I mean, just getting harassed all the time because I had a dealer badge. So I get it. But I would, I think that, you know what would be really,
what that says about our industry. You feel like a little girl walking through or whatever because
but you just feel like meat, I mean, you just do. And I mean, and it was, I just remember that. And I mean, cause I would still get dealer badges going to digital dealer or whatever. So, if you do that, you kind of know what they felt like. So that's what I mean. I'm respecting what they go through, but yet, I always said the companies that if you know what, any company does, like let's say you know what DriveCentric is, you probably won't come by our booth unless you want to see something that's maybe new. But if there is nothing new, what are you going to learn other than talk to somebody that you're already working with? And that's what I always say is you gotta, with technology changing, you almost like the smaller the companies, the 10 by 10 booths that can't afford these 30 by 30 booths or 50 by 100 booths, whatever. Those are the ones that are innovating. And those are the ones that I would always challenge everybody that you should go see, because that's what Cox is buying. That's what Reynolds is buying. They're looking for the innovative companies, and they would buy them and just use that fancy word. Let's integrate with them. And that's what we want to do differently is build, but that's a whole nother story. But I'd like to think that conferences could be more specialty. Like, for example, hey, I'm just throwing this. How would you like this? Hey, here's a CRM conference plus digital retailing conference.
Yeah. There you go.
You know what I mean? And then, hey, if you're in the CRM space, you show up and then you're bound to see somebody that's looking for CRM.
Somebody used to do a CRM conference. I don't know if they still do.
Really?
Somebody did. I spoke at one years ago.
Oh, there's so many, like, you can be very specialized in what you're looking for. And then therefore, hey, this is a CRM. It's going to be nothing but CRM. We're going to get better with CRM or we're not, or it's going to be service or, whatever it may be. But I mean, I think I like I said, my, where I'd like to spend my most money is the smaller conferences. And I think that's, then you can network more effectively too. So.
Well, I have some, what I believe, I know are magically delicious ideas for future conferences. Normally, I'm a position of idea abundance, but I'm not going to share them on this call because I also know enough about this industry that people, they take freely. So I will strategically share those with people that I think it will make a big impact for everybody. I'm not thinking that of like from a greedy perspective. I'm thinking about that from, I have some thoughts that I think could be beneficial to a lot of people. I'd rather, instead of it just benefiting one, I'd like for it to be able to benefit a few, because then it would benefit an industry. So I'll just park that one right there.
Well, I've got an idea for you then too, and I could share that idea with you.
Then we can powwow on that.
That's right.
Normally, I'm a really big fan of good ideas are worthless if you keep them to yourself, but every once in a while, there are some things that you want to make sure that there's enough refinement, polish, and preparation, especially if it's meant to affect. Because some people just like, I'm going to run with it, and they take it out there. And it's like, I could have had so much more mass positive effect. And that's kind of where my head is at on this idea. That said, I don't want to keep you all Friday, so I'm going to go into my kind of transition of a little bit more fun. And try to
having fun already. Come on,
I said a little bit more. Right?
More fun.
So, UFOs.
And you caught me off guard there, man.
Are you a believer, or you're skeptical, or you're like, I don't know, I'm indifferent?
I'm indifferent. I mean, I don't even know. You see it all and you're like, I'm indifferent. I don't know.
Okay. If you called a few people and asked anybody that did my podcast, a few of them would probably tell you at the end, Shaun will probably throw you some hard lefts. Like, where are we going? Okay.
Oh, that's all good. I mean, I'm just like UFOs, huh? Whoa.
Mm-hmm. in our industry, who do you think does the best job of marketing their message? Like, who do you think in the automotive industry selling products or services to dealers? And it doesn't have to be just whatever comes to mind. Who do you think is like, they are so good?
Boy,
does not have to be a CRM company.
No. I know. I mean, but I couldn't even say a dealer.
Sure. Yeah. Anything counts.
Well, I like what Shaun does. They do 1 hour, one salesperson, one price. I think that's a very clean message. I think that's one that a lot of people do know about. They do such a great job on their marketing.
Is that 1 hour, one salesperson, one price, and we actually hit those marks one time a year or no?
No, I mean I'm
kidding. That's I know. I love that.
I know it's just, but I think a lot of people have referenced that. Maybe people don't know that one. But I think too, from a marketing message perspective, I mean, I like, I got to think. I mean, I always think Frank Lopes does a great job, right? I mean, I like Frank. Frank is, he goes out there and, he's always educated, but he's marketing himself indirectly, right? Doing his stuff. So you go out there and you think about what he is doing. He's preaching exactly what he's doing. He's not just like, So, I mean, I always respect what he's doing content wise. And, but anyway, those are, just from a dealership and somebody I'm just thinking about, that's the first thing that comes to my head.
Okay, good. There's no right or wrong answers. All good. Let's talk a little bit of karaoke before I get into this or that.
Yeah.
Karaoke. You are a frequent attendee of, I'm sure not just my karaoke party. It's not just mine, Joe Webb, Arnold too. The Joe, Arnold, and Shaun karaoke-thon. I'm happy to be, even though I'm really the best of all three, I'm okay that my name is at the end of it because it doesn't rhyme without it. And I did kind of come up with the term karaoke-thon because it rhymed with Shaun.
Well, and hey, for the record, I knew about Oh Shucks probably 10 years ago.
Oh, in Orlando.
Yeah, because a lot of the medical conferences were there, so we would bring everybody to Oh Shucks. So, I mean, when you guys said you guys were going to Oh Shucks, I'm like, it's my home away from home. I mean, I love that dive bar. But the one in Vegas was awesome. I mean, I love the one in Vegas. That thing was just the old one. I mean, the new one was not nearly the character.
One day, I think that, with Joe and his buddy, David Hudson, who does a lot of the video production for him. I love David Hudson. I think I like David a little bit more than I like Joe. I didn't know that originally. I didn't know David. I didn't know David as long as I've known Joe. Joe's going to get mad if he hears this, but
I'm sure.
Luckily, I love them both. But I got to tell you, when you have a friend in the industry who's been friends, those two guys have known each other forever. This is totally an aside, but David is just he's so creative and he's just a good person. He's one of the first people that did my podcast with me. And I loved absolutely having him on. Anyway, that said, one day I think that we could actually make a really interesting story about how the Joe, Arnold, and Shaun karaoke-thon came to life, how it came into being, and how it was not meant to be a party sponsored by companies. And now it's the thing that's like, people don't want to go into what feels like a library where the drinks are free. And it's like, hey, you want to talk some more about business? They would love to be able to go out and talk about business while people are singing karaoke and having fun. And, you all of the pretension kind of melts away and you just do your thing. It's kind of crazy. Anyway, that said, Vegas is kind of ground zero to me for karaoke-thon. It's not where it all officially really started, and most people don't know this, but really the first time there was a karaoke, let's go sing karaoke, I wasn't even there. It happened in New Orleans. I think at Cat's Meow. Right?
That's my other bar. That's my all-time favorite bar, Cat's Meow. And I was hoping that if we were going to be in New Orleans, for NADA, that's the bar.
Yeah. So very, very difficult when things are normal to actually call that place and have them do a party like the way we do them now with Oh Shucks. Oh Shucks became the Orlando place. Anytime where there's an event in Orlando, that's where we will always go. We did the one in Tampa. I don't even remember the name of the place. We just said, hey, and that business literally freaked out when we were like, well, we're going to bring like 300 people. Like we're going to pack it out. And sure enough, and that business on the side privately reached out to us and they were like, thank you so much. Like we never have that type of business on a Tuesday night or whatever it was. So that's been fun. But karaoke, do you have songs that you sing every single time? And if so, what are they?
Dude, I try to mix it up. But I mean, I'm a diehard 80s guy, as you know. So if I could do Pour Some Sugar on Me, if I do Motley Crue, Girls, 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 or Poison, Talk Dirty to Me, or
you love the Poison, I've heard it.
You know, yeah. I mean, I do AC/DC, probably Shook Me All Night Long is probably one of my all-time favorites. Do Beastie Boys, Fight for Your Right to Party. So I mix.
Well, I got to pause right here. So for people that have followed the karaoke-thon and listened to this podcast episode to almost the end around AC/DC, you weren't in the auto industry yet, so you won't know who this person is, and I'm not going to say their name, but there's somebody who used to sing AC/DC at the karaoke-thons in the very, very early days, and this includes the Imperial Palace in Vegas. And I've never heard anybody AC/DC that sounds like him, like this guy. You do good. I don't even touch AC/DC. Yeah, you do good.
I strain my voice, you know. I mean, it's hard because I do a lot of impersonations, you know. That's one of my, I always, back in my younger day, I used to try to imitate a lot of voices. Like you heard me do my Hulk Hogan. Ooh,
yes.
So, Macho Man and stuff like that. But so when I do AC/DC, it's kind of hard. You got to really.
Oh, yeah, it's really hard. But if somebody's hearing this and they remember that guy who did AC/DC at the early karaoke-thons, I want you to either text me or send me an email, however you can get in touch with me. Go to dealersuperhero.com and you can communicate with me through there. But tell me the name. If you get the name right of the person I'm thinking of, early karaoke-thon days, and who sang AC/DC and was a badass at it, I will send you a special something. I will send you something that you will be like, so if you want to win a special prize.
Matchbox car.
Better than that.
Oh,
better than that. Okay. So, would you attend a karaoke party where you can't pick any song yourself? Every time you want to sing, it randomly just throws up a song and you have to go and sing it. Would you ever do that?
Yeah, I mean, I've actually seen that done. It's just called karaoke roulette, and I've not participated in that, but no, if everybody was doing it, it would be a lot of fun. You know, hey, speaking of karaoke, I don't know if you ever seen this, but in Minnesota, just because I spent some time up there with Medtronic, there used to be, instead of karaoke, there was called movieoke. And what they did was they would play the caption underneath and you would just imitate that scene. So like if you're doing Caddyshack or whatever and you get multiple people up there, but it's called movieoke. I just wanted to throw that out there because that we did kind of like a roulette with that too. Train bets, but no, karaoke, that's hard to do because, man, when you don't know the song, I mean, but you just know that everybody's going to be screwing up too. So it'd be just kind of fun to do.
Have you ever done live band karaoke?
Yes. That's my all-time favorite, man. Actually, that was at either NADA or Digital Dealer. I can't remember whose party that was, but they did do that. And I got up there and I did AC/DC because I had Shook Me Up All Night Long. And it was a great hair band that did it, man. They were fantastic. It was fun.
Yeah.
It may be floating around somewhere on my Facebook page.
All right. I'll have to look for it. Okay. This is how we're going to end it, with a little bit of this or that. You've probably played this game before. I think I know a couple of your answers on this, but the audience doesn't. So you do have to answer.
This or that.
You can only
sink or float.
The rules are you get one pass. There's only one pass.
Okay.
But they're easy. So starting with wine or whiskey?
Wine.
Okay. I wouldn't have guessed that. Beatles or Stones?
Beatles. You probably wouldn't have guessed that. I do like the Beatles. But yeah, I mean, that's a hard one.
I know. I love them both, but I would choose Beatles too. But whatever. I like them both. Sushi or pizza?
Oh, pizza. That's a no-brainer.
Van Halen or Van Hagar?
Ooh, Van Halen. Okay. That's a tough one too. I love David Lee Roth, man. But
you haven't. Hey, you didn't take a lifeline pass on any of them, and this is the last one. And we are already anyone that paid attention to the visual, Cobra Kai or Miyagi-Do.
Oh, Cobra Kai, baby.
You're wearing a Miyagi-Do shirt.
I know, but I got my Cobra Kai shirt upstairs. I just happen to, it's my Friday shirt. Yeah.
You're throwing me off. So Cobra Kai never dies. Right? Strike first, strike hard, no mercy, sir.
I love, now you talk about like what all these movies are doing right now, they're, cause I think all the movies are done to death now. And so now they're bringing back stories on, kind of like an outlet of what you were like all the Star Wars, like let's do Han Solo, let's do Rogue One, which I love, all those ideas. I think a lot of people are taking everything from what they're doing in Star Wars and spinning off. I mean, it's really kind of like an ingenious idea to keep, really the 80s afloat, man. I mean, come on.
So true. So the last question, I send this out when invite people on the scheduler. We talked about this a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
We were talking about the episode. Last question is, I have been a fan of the motto, be the difference, since I was really, really young. I try to apply it to myself. I'm not always perfect at it, but I always like to ask people that guest on the podcast, is there something or some way in which you like to advocate being the difference in the world?
Yeah, you know what? And when you put that out there, I got to tell you, it's hard because I'm not a deep person. But I'm glad I gave the answer I did, because I did reach out to a couple people and they kind of said the same thing. So I felt really good about it. But because I said, what's everybody going to remember me for? And I hope everybody just says, I made you laugh. I mean, if I could put a smile on your face, then I feel like I did my job. One of my core sayings that I used to say, I don't say it as frequently, but I used to say, I'm on vacation. I'm on vacation. And, I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm at TGI Fridays. What are you doing? Oh, I'm on vacation. Where are you from? St. Louis. Well, what are you doing here? You should be in, wherever. And I always said my life's a vacation. And when I die, okay, I'll be permanently on vacation is what I say. So actually I wrote a will about 20 years ago, and it was a joke, but I wrote that on my tombstone. It's going to say, here lies Steve Roessler, permanently on vacation. So it is kind of I haven't said it that often, but my whole point is I always made light of everything. So I'm going to laugh at everything. And I hope everybody else just knows that no matter what problems you have, there's light at the end of the tunnel. And sometimes you got to laugh about the situation you're in, because I guarantee, like if I tell you about my Medtronic and my pitfalls I had in life, I can look back and say, man, I learned from it and I became stronger. Mm-hmm. And I look back, I'm like, man, I was so worried. And, why was I worried about it? Because I pulled myself out of it. And it just, things always happen for a reason, but you got to laugh everything off. And it's just the way we need to be. Otherwise, life is miserable. I'm not about being miserable. I'm wrinkly because of all my smiles.
Well, I couldn't say that better myself. Misery loves company, so I'm not a big fan of staying there either. And it's super easy to find the things that make us feel that way. I don't dwell on a lot of it. This year's been really hard for a lot of people. And I think it's great that you're like, hey, I'm on vacation. I'm like, that's great. I love it. That's awesome, Steve. This has been so much of a good time. I really appreciate it. Appreciate your friendship. Appreciate you wanting to guest on the podcast. To the audience, I have to tell you, now you know what's going on with Steve Roessler.
Oh, yeah, brother.